media library professionals. We have a great panel and group of folks with representatives of different media outlets in our space who are here today to discuss their work and the current state of the publishing landscape in media for libraries. I think, first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Charles Cobine. I am the Cinema and Media Studies librarian here at the University of Pennsylvania, Penn in Philadelphia. The way we'll do this panel is by starting with some introductions. We'll talk about then we'll talk about the background of each publication whose representatives have joined us here today, and then we'll have a bit of a facilitated discussion, very informal, and talk a little bit about our space. I guess I'll start off by sort of, choosing you all one at a time to introduce yourself. David Parker, would you like to say a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks, Charles. So I'm David Parker. I've been involved with the Video Trust for quite some time, going back to the days of the media market. Over the past 20 years, I've spent half my career in publishing, educational and academic, professional trade reference publishing, and the other half in building, launching, and distributing streaming video platforms. So I guess equal doses of experience that afforded me the perspective to work with Video Trust to launch Stream Magazine. And that's a bit about me, Charles. Shall I say more about Stream yet, or is that coming up?
Well, you'll have a lot of opportunity to talk about it in our discussion when we talk about each publication. Now, Angela and Mo are here from EMRO. Angela, do you want to talk a little bit about introduce yourself, please?
Hello, so I'm Angela Davis. I'm actually a reference and instruction librarian at Penn State Behrend, which is a campus of the Penn State system. So I'm up in Erie, Pennsylvania. And as Charles has just said, I'm currently the editor and the only person managing EMRO. And a little bit about how I got started with that is because my background is in engineering librarianship. As a graduate student, the former editor, Lori Wazinski, asked me to help her with the social media aspect of EMRO. And then when she retired, she was looking for someone to take it over. And she asked me first, and I guess I was, and I want to say the only sucker that agreed to it, but I had agreed to be editor, and it has been quite a journey. It's been interesting and exciting.
Great. And Mo, do you want to introduce yourself for our viewers?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mo3. I'm currently head of media services and the interim subject area librarian for religious studies here at the Herman B. Wells Library at Indiana University, Bloomington. And just want to acknowledge that IU and the city of Bloomington rest on the ancestral lands of the Miami, Delaware, Shawnee, and Potawatomi people. And I have the privilege of working with Angela as a EMRO reviewer. Thank you.
Great. And next, let's go to Alan and Caroline from Video Librarian.
Hi, I'm Alan. I've been president of Passion Over Films for about 20 years. I've been lucky enough to receive nice orders from some of the panelists here and also have our films reviewed on EMRO. So thank you very much for all the above. As a distributor, I have lots of experience in all the facets of handling films for the academic and public library sector. And then we had the opportunity several years ago to purchase Video Librarian because Randy, the publisher, was retiring. And we thought there was a good connection to go ahead and take it to the next level by bringing it into the digital age, improving the website, and also moving away from print and making the content more available to a global audience. So we've been doing that. Of course, bad timing. As soon as we took it over, COVID hit, shut down all the schools and libraries around the world. We just decided to take that time and get busy with rebuilding. And that's and Caroline was instrumental and a big part of as editor-in-chief with all of that rebuilding.
Yes, hi, I'm Caroline Madden. I'm a film critic and an author, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Video Librarian. I started with Video Librarian probably only a couple of days before the pandemic hit, so it's definitely been an interesting journey.
Great. Well, welcome to all of you. It's lovely to have you all together in the same virtual room here, and we can talk a little bit more about the history of our publications and you know, our backgrounds. So I'm going to kind of prompt you with some questions, and we can discuss. Let's start with Video Librarian. Alan and Caroline, would one of you like to talk a little bit about the history and overview, and give an overview of Video Librarian? It's familiar to many of us in this space, and is probably one of the longest published publications out there. And yeah, what can you tell us about Video Librarian for those of us who aren't currently subscribers?
So I'll give a little background. What Randy said to me as we were getting ready to take it over was he started his publication decades ago for the benefit of reviewing films that were otherwise not being reviewed by traditional outlets. And his goal was to purvey films that made a lot of sense to people that were collecting, and it would be public and academic libraries. He didn't really want to focus on the big films. He always felt that the big films had enough press, had enough marketing dollars behind it, and he wanted to focus on the films that needed help. And that's how it ended up connecting with so many independent filmmakers, distributors, especially in the documentary group, and within all the niches of fitness, instructional, and everything in between. Once we discussed taking it over, it was about how much energy he had and with retiring, and how much energy we had to bringing it to the next level, which is really digital. And it was really about trying to find a different audience, and about finding films that made sense, that would still connect with collectors. And one thing that we learned from that was, as soon as we went digital and focused, and he had a website, but the website was more of an add-on. So the focus was more about the collectability of the magazine and put it on a shelf. And towards the end, he was probably having a subscription of anywhere from under 1,000 people that were on the subscription list. And that was published bi-monthly. So you fast forward to today, where we are 2.5 years later, and we could easily hit 5,000+ people in 1 week. So you look at how dramatically different it is. And Winifred at UNC said it best, and I never forgot when she told me this. She says, you know, I kind of see where you may be going. And this is once we first took it. She says, I see more people other than just a traditional librarian, whether public or academic, using this content. With over 40,000 pages on the website and reviews spanning over 30 years. And she was right. And as soon as we started optimizing for the world, we started seeing that many different people were collectors and needed to source content for their needs that didn't have a traditional librarian title.
Oh, that's interesting to hear. Like, can you tell us a little bit about the, you know, like, what are the other audiences out there for a publication like this?
So I'll let Caroline chime in, because she writes a lot of the content trying to focus on these audiences. So we have the unique aspect of trying to look at our analytics, see what people are reading, and using some data that you can't get from a physical publication. Because once the physical gets mailed out and lands on Mo's desk or Charles' desk, how do I know what you're reading? I can't tell. I can't tell who you're sharing it with, what pages you dog-eared. I can't see anything. The closest we got to that was back in the day from National Media Market and Market Mania. As a presenter for the distribution company, I would stand in the back of the room and watch what pages and people were highlighting. That was my only secret way of analytics, to see what you were circling, to figure out what you may buy and what interest you have. And that would give me an idea of what to acquire for future markets. But with online, we look at the back end Google data, and then that helps Caroline to figure out what she wants to source out, work on writers, and I'll let her tell you with that what she went.
So obviously, we still cater to public and academic librarians, but what we branched out into is also educators. So we'll do a lot of like lists articles that are like based on a particular like academic subject. So we would be recommending films for that subject, whether it be science or like Civil War history, and we try to recommend not only narrative films, but documentaries as well, and connecting educators with distributors, you know, outside of the mainstream. And in addition to educators, we're also working on articles that help community organizations, like such as a JCC, or any other community organization that would be interested in hosting public screenings. And we have guides on how to get that set up, and you know, educating those workers on, you know, what are rights and why do you need to require them, and how do you get in touch with distributors, how to sort of informational pieces like that. And we also we're starting to also branch out with filmmakers, particularly documentary filmmakers, helping them learn if they have a documentary that is educational, you know, how they can get in touch with distributors, how they can market their films. So we're just really trying to sort of synthesize all these different audiences, and we've been tracking like a great amount of growth. So it's been very beneficial for us.
Great. Well, that's great to hear. And it's encouraging just to hear about the interest, you know, from outside what would traditionally be called our space. Angela, would you like to talk a little bit about the history of EMRO and how it came to be, and how it might be a little bit different from what they're doing at Video Librarian?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of history of EMRO first. So I know that EMRO began in 1997 as the AV Review Database, which was part of the MC Journal. And when that journal had stopped publication in 2002, the AV Review Database was moved into EMRO, an online system database at SUNY Buffalo, with Lori Wodzinski, as I mentioned before, as the editor. And then in 2009, it was transferred to me at Penn State, and that was just about 6 months before the pandemic started. So just about the time I started to feel comfortable and like want to make some changes, everything shut down. So that's still in a holding pattern at the moment. But what EMRO we do is we really focus on providing critical reviews of films and media from major educational and documentary filmmakers and distributors. And they're really aimed mostly at the educational audience. So we really more focus on academic librarians and how they can use them to promote these types of materials to in the library world, as we say, to their users. So their students and their faculty and staff to use in their own research and instruction type things.
Great to hear. And it's interesting to know about the history. I just consider like EMRO. I've seen EMRO ever since I went to library school. It's been around, and that's just interesting to hear that it, you know, we used to refer to our space as audio visual, you know, and now that term is kind of, you know, floated off into the past. David, can you tell us a little bit about Stream Magazine and its you know, its history?
In 2019, the previous director of Video Trust and I were discussing how we could offer more value and more benefit to the members of the Video Trust. And one of the principal ways we thought we could do that was to publish and introduce different perspectives, different ideas to the membership, from the membership and from folks outside the membership that were interested in writing and sharing on the space of streaming video, streaming media, scholarly research, thought about the use of materials, et cetera, et cetera. So we really didn't know how to approach that. So we started by doing, I think, what most folks in new product development do, which is use mixed methods of quantitative and qualitative research to try to understand what prospective customers, users, readers are struggling with. So we did a lot of survey, quantitatively structured surveys that gave us data to crunch. And then we did a bunch of different qualitative interviews. And along the way, over the course of a year, a little over a year, we began to put together a composite picture of areas of information need that media librarians, distributors, filmmakers and faculty that were teaching with video were finding that they needed more information. And that led to the structuring of what Stream Magazine would be. In other words, how we would structure the publication, what the topic areas would be, and what niche we would fill. And so it quickly emerged that there really wasn't a need for another scholarly journal. Thank goodness, because I have spent enough time thinking about and working on scholarly journals in my life, but that there was need for a publishing platform that would bring, again, media librarians, faculty that teach with the content, librarians that distribute, deliver, and select the content, and the distributors together. So that's how Stream came to be. It took us into 22 to actually launch the magazine, because after we formulated what it would be, we spent a good 9 months brainstorming specifically and narrowly what that would be, and landing on the columns that we now feature, and finding the column editors that would run those columns. And we fortunately were able to put out the first edition of a quarterly magazine in June of 2022. And the next edition is coming out in about 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. I'm wondering about the publishing schedule for each of your publications. If you all don't mind sharing a little bit about the frequency of publication. I think, are we all quarterly publications? Caroline's shaking her head.
Video librarian, since I'm the editor, I'm pretty much the only one in charge of like doing the actual publishing. I don't have my assistants publish anything. So like normally, if I'm out for a day, we just don't publish anything on that day. But we tend to be like every weekday. We're publishing between 3 and 4 reviews, and usually 1 article a day. And of course, sometimes this isn't exact, but that's kind of what we aim for.
Interesting. So like, I'm still thinking of like a print publication, sort of model, but you're really completely on the web publishing side,
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it definitely allows for, quicker publication and more frequency.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Angela?
I jumped again there, but Emmer is kind of the same way with the web publishing. As it's set up, I would, in the future, I would like to transition to either a monthly or perhaps a little longer way of publishing things, because as I mentioned before, I'm the only person running Emro at the moment. But the way things are set up at the moment, reviews are immediately published as soon as I put them in the system. So similar to Caroline, there is that things do get published most weekdays, and then they are blasted out to Emro's social media on a little slower schedule, because I can schedule social media posts in a way I can't on the actual database. But yeah, we post pretty frequently.
And David, going forward with Stream, are we a quarterly publication here with Video Trust?
Quarterly publication, yeah, and following sort of the ebb and flow of the year. So we're publishing a spring, summer, fall, winter. edition.
Okay. Yeah, so I know that there are probably a lot of people out there in the audience who are wondering, you know, they're part of this community of library media professionals or interested in this space. How do you want to talk a little bit about how people can become contributors to each publication? I mean, Mo, I know you have donated time and written for EMRO before. Do you want to say a little bit about how you got involved? We can just start with you.
Okay, sure, thanks. It's sort of an evolution. I used to write for the National Media Market reviews. I think that was Betty and Cliff Erlinger, if that name sounds familiar. And they used to target a lot of us to sort of write reviews in advance before National Media Market happened. And then I was contacted by Lori back in the early 2000s, just saying, would you like to continue to write some reviews? So I said, sure. What I love about writing reviews is that many media librarians are the sole person at their job, where they run a unit of people, and we're not often able to get away to write publications, huge publications. We can submit articles, but I think especially if you're a neophyte librarian, just dip your toes in the water, so to speak, as to get acquainted and start slow. Start at the low level of submitting film reviews to either one of Angela, Alan, David, Carolyn, just to kind of like build up your writing skills and being critical. I especially love it that Angela is very patient with us. She sends out trailers of particular documentaries and say, hey, are you interested in this field? Like, Angela, is there like over 80 or 90 subject? Yeah, there's a whole list of subject areas, and I love that about it. You can really like type in numerous one. It doesn't have to just be the specific subject area. There's so many topics to explore in EMRO. Also, I think we really need some young voices in there because of the world and what's happening. Sometimes you can get really critical and put your input into these film critiques and reviews. So I really encourage people to just contact Angela. My specialty happens to be primarily African American studies, LGBTQ studies, but I've had the pleasure of like looking at these documentaries that I'm having to think outside the box of the content, and that has been really helpful to me. So I really appreciate Angela and what she does for EMRO.
Great. I mean, and I see that, you know, Caroline, you guys at Video Librarian are you also in sort of like recruitment mode for review authors, or how does that work, and who normally writes and contributes to Video Librarian?
Yeah, we still have quite a few writers from like the original staff who worked with Randy, and so they're still with us. I feel like there's about at least 10, and then we have about, I would say, 10 more who are just like solid staff writers that are more consistent with assignments. And then I have at least 20 or so, or even more writers that review occasionally. We also have opportunities. You don't just you aren't just able to write reviews. You can also write articles, whether that be an essay, a list. You can interview. We publish a lot of interviews with filmmakers or leaders in the librarian or academic sphere. So we definitely we cast a wide net for our writers, and I'm always looking for some fresh perspectives.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So, I see like in the chat, we might want to just share your contact information for anybody who is here in the audience. If you're interested in contributing to Video Librarian, you could, go to the website videolibrarian.typeform, typeform.com/pitches. PITCHES, or you could email Caroline at caroline@videolibrarian.com. Same goes for EMRO, Educational Media Reviews Online. If you'd like to get in touch with Angela, you can contact her at EMRO, @psu.edu if you'd like to become a reviewer or you'd like to submit a film for review. So that brings up a question that I have for Angela. How do you decide which films to review? You must have a long list.
So it's funny that you pitched it as decide which ones to review. So usually I don't have to go out and ask people to give me films to review. Lori, the previous editor before me, had built quite a good relationship with many of the educational distributors. The ones that pop in my head at the moment are Bullfrog Films. We've done a bunch lately for Women Make Movies, and other folks similar to them. And they happily submit to me information about films they would like reviewed pretty frequently. And then I do a lot of the back end matching, as Mo said, to find reviewers for them and get them published in. I always like to say we like to have them published within a couple months, but as we all know, the pandemic in life has challenged a lot of us with time. So I try to give people as much time that they need, because I figure it is better to get the review published than to pull it away from someone that is really trying to work on it hard. So I hope that answered your question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Charles, can I also say one more thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Reviewers also, for the ALA's Film and Media Roundtable, you can recommend, if you watch a really great documentary from these EMRO or something, you can also submit those titles for notables for adult nominees, if that makes sense. Like, you get to watch these great films, but then you can also say, hey, I just watched this terrific film. Will the VMRT consider it possibly as a notables for adult selection?
Oh, that's interesting. Yes. So that, unrelated from any of these publications, the ALA division of the Film and Media Roundtable, FMRT, does have, a list of notable films that it recommends every year. And so that is interesting, because that's another outlet for information about films. So let me return to David for one moment. David, what can you say a little bit about contributors to the new Stream magazine?
Yeah, first let me just say kudos to Angela, because I follow a journal called the Journal of Digital Pedagogy, and they have a policy of never rejecting an article. Now, that doesn't mean that they just publish anything. They commit to working with the authors, and that could mean 2 months, 2 years to working with the authors to publish. But the fact, Angela, that you don't, just pull something away from somebody because they struggle with whatever they're struggling with is really admirable. So anyway, hats off to you. And to answer your question, Charles, every issue, of Stream magazine is structured around 6 features. The first is a broadly conceptualized feature article or set of articles where we work with a contributor on a theme of importance to them. And that theme could be anything, and the contributor could be anybody, meaning they could come from the library world, they could come from the filmmaker world, the distributor world, or the faculty that teach with media world. And they have an idea about something that they want to get published and put out there for that community to read and interact with. And it doesn't necessarily mean print only. We are a digital publication, and we have the capacity to do what digital publications can do, which is work with a broad spectrum of media types. Beyond that feature that can be very different each issue, we have 5 columns that are fixed. The first column is future of media and learning. And that's, as I'd put the emphasis on learning. How does media in Bolden help faculty teach, students learn, right? What is the emphasis through that column is always learning. The second is the library space. And that is a column that focuses on the physical space of the library and how the physical space of the library is used to enhance the experience of working with media. The third is the business of media in the library. And this is the nuts and bolts of things like, how do I deal with fair use? What are the purchasing models that are out there? How do I interact with vendors, right? It's that real nuts and bolts of running a library on the media side. The fourth is building bridges. This is a Q&A that we do where we raise tough questions, difficult questions, and then we get librarians, filmmakers, and distributors to interact with the questions in a collaborative setting in this interview process. And the final is our top 10 film releases. And this is the alchemy of what Angela was describing and Carolyn was describing, which is, how do you pick 10? Don't ask me. I'm not going to answer. I don't know. I trust somebody else to do it. So there I just laid out what we publish. Every one of those areas is an opportunity for people to contribute. The 5 columns I described all have column editors, but they're always looking for contributors to help them with their topics. So there's a lot of ways you can contribute to Stream Magazine.
Oh, it's so interesting. There's so many different pieces of the puzzle here in addressing questions that are of interest to people in our community. Let me return to, I just want to kind of throw the gates open now and really kind of talk about some of the things that are of interest to all of our publications. Like, what are some of the hot topics out there? And I don't know if I guess we can start with that question, directing it toward Alan and Caroline at Video Librarian. Like, what are you guys thinking of as like the hottest topics out there within this community of libraries and media?
So I had a little idea of that before I even started diving deep into analytics for Video Librarian. And it started from when I was going to National Media Market and going to, say, South by Southwest and looking at the VLA roundtable and participating in the dinner session, right, at the ALA. And what I noticed overwhelmingly is the VRT, you'd have, say, 50 people, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. And I said to myself, this can't be possibly the representation of all librarians throughout the country that are responsible for collecting media. It can't be. There has to be more. And the farther I dig deep into this, I realized that there's so many librarians that are multitasked, that are responsible for a lot of things, and they have only minutes to worry and to actually source out content, build collections, and figure out how that content can engage with academia, educators, department heads, patrons, and community. And I always thought that was the problem. And I thought that these people couldn't get out to National Media Market. And that's why National Media Market was offering grants to get people who are multitasking under budget. And so once we took this over and went digital, I said, this is an amazing opportunity. And the proof is in the pudding with analytics, because I know for 110%, we're reaching librarians that their full-time job is not fortunate enough to be doing collections or to be sourcing out curation, but they only have a minute and they only want to solve their problem. And they come to us and we're starting to see that, how can I solve the problem? Similar to what David said. So when we're thinking about hot topics, reviews are important, but we're seeing that that's not necessarily the most important thing. We're seeing ideas on curation, ideas on development, ideas on professional development, how to hold an event, how to satisfy your collection for a department when your budget is strapped, how to use Canopy. That's been the hottest topic. How to not blow your budget on Canopy because you did a set it and forget it, and then it was whoops, your whole budget's gone. Mm-hmm. We noticed that these were very hot. And when we put out lists, similar to what all of you said about a top 10, and Video Librarian has their annual top 10 documentaries, We found a lot of librarians just didn't have the time to research it themselves, and they trusted their peers. And when the list came out from these publications, they went and they sourced the content and they bought it because their time was limited. So as we dug deeper into this, this is the way we're going. These are the submissions we're really interested in. We're interested in people to help contribute and write articles that solve problems for anybody that's in the role of collecting media to further their goals. So site licensing, server requirements, how to pick the proper way of balance of Canopy and Hoopla, the tech requirements. All of these things have all of a sudden become hot topics for us. So how weird is it? Because Video Librarian and print was 100% all about reviews. And here we are, we're going in a little bit of a different direction to stitch it all together, because the reviews are no good if you don't know how to use it.
Fair enough. That's true. Yeah. Angela, what would you say? Like, what do you consider to be your, hot topics? I mean, are there things that are going to come from EMRO, like, in the near future that we can expect?
I'm not sure. Conversation took a different turn than I was expecting. So what I was just going to say about hot topics and things from the perspective of the review work that I do is the films and things that reviewers get most excited about, and the things that they want to pass on to others are those things that deal with hot topics currently in society. So they want things that match stuff that's happening in the moment. So we think about things like the pandemic or the war in Ukraine or abortion or all those things, and they want them now in this moment. So it's always a struggle between, the timely manner to get this stuff to them, the time it takes us to review and publish and those things. And I think in general, publishing in the future in that way is going to have to deal with this just-in-time society we live in, and how we balance those different aspects of what people want and what we can actually give them. I don't think that's really a response to Alan there, but that's kind of what.
No, it's a different aspect. It's like EMRO has always done a great job with their metadata and like the labels and the like sort of, it's like EMRO had hashtags before we really even called them hashtags. So it's kind of like it has to do more with the organization of your publication in a way, I feel like. Let's see here. Why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about, anything else that you guys want to discuss. I guess we can talk a little bit about, web publishing. I feel like always media librarians have been, sort of like relying on the print publication to come at a certain interval, and then look at the reviews and sort of mark down their choices and do their collection work that way. How when we're on such a schedule, and we're overseeing a web publication, I don't know, Caroline, do you want to talk a little bit about how a video librarian keeps up with publishing on the web and how that works?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to talk about. So I'm just trying to organize my thoughts. I mean, a big part that plays into it is SEO, or search engine optimization, which is essentially using internet language to appear on Google search. You want to be on the first page, at the top of the page, so kind of using specific techniques such as linking, headlines, and then discovering your keywords to make sure that you are hitting the correct audience and relevant audiences. So we do a lot of research into those keywords, and essentially keyword research is like what is a librarian typing into the computer when they search for something, when they search for a film, or when they search, for tips about collection development, things like that. So yeah, we do a lot with identifying keywords and just, linking to outside sources and sources within our site. So it's definitely, it's a big part of what helps us gain a wider audience, and it's definitely something that you need to learn in this sort of like digital landscape. There are so many sites who are using these techniques, and it really helps with audience growth.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's interesting. How do you find that most people arrive at your site, and do you know whether or not, like, how your audience breaks out in terms of like who are they? Librarians? Are they more filmmakers than librarians? Are they in another category of like sort of other people online?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely also like ascertain that through the types of subscribers that we get as well as our analytics. I feel like Alan can also speak to that as well. But yeah, there's just we use Google Analytics, and there's definitely a like wide range of like how you can break things down and find the sources. Like you can find like some people are hitting our site just from a review page, or you can see if they actually like typed video librarian. So some people are just sort of stumbling on video librarian, as a result of finding us on Google. And there's many other ways within Google Analytics. You can break down by like location, age, gender. So yeah, there's a lot to digest.
Charles, can I give 2 seconds on that?
Oh, sure.
So an example that was once explained to me, and it made a lot of sense, is if you're going to Google and you search the word chicken, and there's 2 types of articles in theory you can come across, is say how to raise a chicken. And where I live, you can possess 1 chicken per acre. So if you go beyond that, you could get fined by the city. Maybe I'm interested in figuring out how to raise chickens because my daughter wants to see it. Or maybe you're Googling chicken because you're interested in a recipe for cooking chicken for tonight for dinner. 2 totally different things. But if your site's being read and you're reading and you can see that the user is visiting your site and staying on the page for a certain amount of time and then clicking additional links on the page on how to raise a chicken, we can infer that the reason they're on there, their intent is actually to raise chickens. So as we look at our content and we scrub through all the data, we make these inferences and we try to figure out intent of the user. And we can see that the way that the articles are written and the way that they're designed, we can tell that it's really geared towards academia, librarians. It's not hard to find a review on a film, and it's not hard to find a quote unquote commercial review on a film. And there's many websites that are out there and blogs. The way we write it is with a slant towards academia and towards collection development. So the chances of somebody finding that value in it because they're trying to find a film for date night, it's pretty low value for that. But for academia or librarian, they find higher value in it because of the way that we're writing, the use of the keywords, the use of determining what the film has value for what departments, these hashtags that we incorporate within. So that's kind of how we can tell. And with that, web publishing has taught us something incredibly different. Is the magazine, I couldn't really tell how many pages you're looking for. I couldn't also understand what your behavior was. Were you flipping through every page and then circling and then making your selection of films? versus now we're seeing people are coming to the site and they're looking for a very specific film or very specific item. So they're not actually engaging in shopping per se, unless they hit a curated list, but they're looking for something very, very specific. And once they see it, they read it, they're out of there. And then they come back again for something very specific, and then they're out of there. And so that definitely has changed. And that shows us how people are using us as a resource, and it affects our thinking of how we're creating the pages, how we're cross-linking to other pages, because I'd love for somebody to read 2 or 3 more pages instead of just reading 1 or 1.7. But I can clearly see why, because the librarian is being multitasked, asked to do 5 things. And also now people are coming back on campus. So now they're behind because they're 2 years behind in getting collections together because their budgets were cut. So they're coming in quick, down and dirty and out. And that's probably what's really changed for us, is thinking about not serving them up an all-you-can-eat buffet for 50 reviews, but making sure whatever they're looking for, they get it, they find it, and they can quickly use the information they're looking for. And then when they're ready for a curated list because they want to build a collection, that's waiting there for you too.
Interesting. Yeah. So like you have these people who are librarians who are jack of all trades that are doing, they're in many roles at once in their work, and they need the information. Can I just ask all of you, like, do you feel like your publications address all of the different types of library work, like academic librarians, public librarians, people who are K to 12 media specialists, librarians? How do your publications either target or meet the needs of all of those different audiences?
I will say that at the end of our reviews, what we tend to do is we have like a list of questions and that the reviewer will answer. And a lot of these questions are geared towards, for public librarians, we sort of suggest, what library shelf would this film be good for? For academic librarians, we talk about what school subject this would be good for. And then with our children's section, we include the ages it's appropriate for, sometimes maybe even like the lessons it teaches. So we sort of have that as like a guide for whatever librarian is looking at the review.
I will say that EMRO, we review things mostly through the lens for academic library collections. We try to do similar things where we put the different audiences. So we those audiences we focus on mostly we think of them as like high school age students up through college. We also have a popular audience we usually have is for general audiences. And when we think of general audiences, mostly we think of like adults, folks that are interested in these different subjects. So there is some overlap for folks that work in public libraries that might want to use them. But again, most of our slant is to the educational academic type folks.
And similarly, Stream is focused on the academic market and the academic reader.
And I'll just interject, Charles, just real quick. There's a few films that I watched for Emerald that were heartbreaking, and they were for like the high school and up. And I think it's called I, Katie, the young girl who really has big dreams of going to college, et cetera, and then she becomes pregnant. So there are those films, not a lot, but yes, I think Emerald really serves a wide variety of audiences. And you're right, pretty much for building collections, for teachers and et cetera. I just love it. I love all of your publications, but I really love working with Angela. She's awesome.
Yeah, Video Librarian doesn't, we don't tend to review like mainstream films, so we're not like reviewing Marvel or anything like that. We definitely focus a lot of documentaries, independent narratives, etc.
Yeah, that's great. It's like because our community is just it's a bit different, and we have different goals. It's not like Rotten Tomatoes or something like that, or, we're not aggregating all these other like types of reviews with these publications. Is there anything else that you all would like to discuss that we haven't really addressed yet so far in our conversation?
I have something, if I can say. At root of how I entered into this industry of film and being part of National Media Market, and also now with Video Librarian, I still have this deep romantic goal and feeling of just wanting to help share stories and help people discover stories so that they can be watched and viewed in a public setting. There is pure magic with a movie screening where you're sharing it in a dark room and sitting next to somebody you don't know. And that discovery is why I entered this business. And I'm hoping that now COVID is hopefully behind us. And with the power of the librarians around the world, they take a big role in helping to discover content, curate it, and program it. And it doesn't have to be this traditional librarian title either. But anybody that has a role in sharing story is something that excites us. And it excites me to hear all of you doing the same thing, because that's really what we're trying to do. And I hope that we get better chances to find room for public screenings, because streaming is obviously important. There's no way around it, but there's still something really beautiful about a public screening.
Absolutely. Yes. I agree with that too. I applaud that sentiment. Well, is there anything? Oh, Angela, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just feel like I need to plug this because I haven't said it yet, but I did want to make sure everyone knows that EMRO is open access. So if you're interested in becoming a reviewer and in the library world, we know how important open access is becoming. So we are a completely open access publication. So just want to make sure I got that in before the powers that be get upset.
Fair enough. And that's good to know too. I feel like if there isn't anything else that anybody wants to add here, we can wrap up our session. Before I do want to give a little bit of an announcement to all of our viewers. I would like to invite folks from libraries, whether you're in higher ed, if you're at a public library system or K-12, to consider signing up for a membership for Video Trust. And if you are a member already, please don't forget to renew your membership this year. Individual members will receive exclusive subscription access to Stream Magazine, which is our quarterly digital publication for media library professionals, with contributions by media library professionals. We also produce webinars on a regular basis, as well as online coffee chats for folks in this community, just like this, so that we can share information. Students can join at half price, and membership also allows you to join this active network of library and media industry professionals who have really, in many cases, a deep knowledge of film and are interested in sharing their thoughts on, all of the quandaries of distribution, licensing, how the industry is interfacing with the academic market. So I just wanted to put that plug out there that we really would like to see you join and become a member of Video Trust. That's my own plug. Is there anything else anybody would like to share before we wrap up?
Just a quick question I forgot to ask Angela. Are the reviews still in OCLC or WorldCat? They used to plug them in there somehow.
They they are supposed to be plugging them in there. Unfortunately, unlike Carolyn, I don't have too much of the back end data stuff available to me. There's IT folks at Penn State that are dealing with that. And last I heard, they were making that connection. So my fingers are crossed that our reviews are still plugged into OCLC records too.
Yeah, good to know. And I mean, I know that Video Librarian is certainly indexed as well, you know, as we do our database searches in the course of our jobs as librarians, we encounter those reviews. Okay, well, I'd like to just take a moment to thank you all for joining us for this conversation today. It's been a really interesting one. So to Mo, Angela, Alan, David, Caroline, thank you for sharing a little bit more about your publications. And I encourage all of the folks out there who are watching this to consider contributing to the publications. I know that you know, feel free to take notes and reach out if you're looking for opportunities to contribute. So there is a question about Stream Magazine for David that we can address before we wrap up here. Is there sort of a goal to get us into get Stream Magazine into an abstract or indexing database or into the directory of open access journals?
Well, I would say there's a goal. Is there the capacity and the bandwidth to get it indexed is another issue, but we certainly need to. I would distinguish between public access and open access. Right now, the Stream Magazine is public access. To be open access means to have applied CC BY license rights to every article. And in order to be in the DOAJ, it has to be open access and CC BY license appropriate. So that is not a step we've taken yet with Stream Magazine. Not that we couldn't, but at present, it's a public access magazine.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. So that's in response. There's your answer to this question coming out of Brella. So thank you. Let's go ahead and wrap up from here and allow ourselves a little bit of time to have a break before the visiting and booth hours, the virtual booth hours begin at 3 o'clock Eastern time. And just another thank you to everybody out there. This was a wonderful conversation. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of the conference and take care.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, if you're looking for something to do, I would go ahead and encourage you to watch the copyright panel that's under the event info tab on the homepage if you want something to sort of fill your next 45 minutes before booths open up. But even before booths open up, most panelists are happy to take, or most panelists are happy to talk and most vendors are happy to take